Hello, my name is Brenda Generali. I'm a naturopath. I'm also the president and CEO of Joyful Living Services Academy. We have a sanctioned school here in the United States, and I am a comprehensive iridology instructor with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. Today, I'm going to be talking about the introduction to iridology, and I'll be sharing some iridology case studies with you. So first, what I want to do is I would like to thank the Croatian Association of Natural and Energetic Medicine for the opportunity to speak at your 15th annual Congress. And I'd like to thank Ivana Gadalja from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to speak. Ivana is a certified comprehensive iridologist with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. So thank you. So let me talk a little bit here about the history of iridology. Iridology is in China, Egypt, Greece, India, Italy, Europe, and America. It's rooted in ancient history and ancient cultures. It is an ancient practice which dates back more than 3,000 years in China, Egypt, and India, where it was first used to study the iris and its relation to the organs and systems of the body. As science evolves, we need to keep pace and we need to change with it. And so if you're already familiar with iridology, you will see that iridology is changing. It has changed and it is still changing. This here is a picture of Dr. Bernard Jensen, who was my mentor. He is also was known as the founder of iridology here in the United States. So what is iridology? Iridology is the study of the color and structure of the iris of the eye as it relates to the genetic predisposition and health of the body systems. It does not name any diseases, but it shows us what areas need nurturing or what body systems need strengthening. It does not diagnose, but instead analyzes or assesses predispositions and genetic inheritance. We used to believe that there were only two colors of irises. We used to think that there was only blue and brown. But over the years of studying and doing a lot of study with iridology, a lot of research with iridology, we've now learned that there are three colors of eyes. There is a blue, which we call blue lymphatic. There's mixed, which we call mixed biliary. This is a combination of blue and brown. And there's brown, which we call brown hematogenic. Each color, each iris color, has its own set of genetic tendencies, dietary recommendations, lifestyle habits, and herbal suggestions. So for instance, a blue-eyed person would tend to have genetic tendencies such as a lot of respiratory, so such as sinus issues and bronchitis and pneumonia and things like that, maybe arthritis, problems with the joints, things like that. People with mixed biliary iris constitution would tend to have genetic tendencies with digestion issues. So anything related to the stomach, the colon, the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder. And brown hematogenic people would tend to have genetic tendencies regarding iron or anemia, the bones, the blood, the glands, things like that. So here is a slide that I put together about what we call resiliency. And resiliency has to do with how quickly someone can bounce back from illness or injury. How quickly do they bounce back? How quickly do they get better? So I have four pictures here that you can see. I have one here that's labeled very resilient. This one here is resilient. This one is moderately resilient, and this one is least resilient. And you will see here the difference between these four pictures. This one here at the top that's labeled very resilient, you can see that the iris fibers are very tight and very straight. And when we see that they're very tight and very straight like this tells us that this person can be very resilient. They can bounce back very quickly from illness or injury. You will notice that this picture here, these fibers are not quite as straight and not quite as tight. You'll see that there's a little bit of waviness here in between the fibers. Some of the fibers are wavy. There's a little bit more space here. And so when we see the fibers being a little bit more wavy and a little bit of space in between the fibers, that's usually what we call resilient. These two type of resiliencies tend to be more cerebral, meaning these are people that are more in their head. Okay, they have a lot of projects to accomplish. They're thinkers. They are creators. They come up with a lot of ideas. They want certain things done a certain way in a certain process. They tend to be type A personality. Okay, they want things done a certain way in a certain order. They create a lot and they work in business a lot. So here we have what we call moderately resilient. And you'll notice the huge difference here between the moderately resilient iris and the least resilient iris. So the moderately resilient iris, you can see there's a lot more space in between these fibers, a lot more wavy fibers, a lot more space, and just the fibers are not straight. So there's a lot more space. So this person here may not bounce back quite as quickly from illness or injury. Might take them a few more days, okay? Here we have somebody, what we call least resilient, and you can see lots and lots and lots of space here, a lot of space between the fibers, a lot of openings in the iris. Okay, this is somebody that may not be able to stay up all night. If they stay up all night, they may be very tired and take days to recover. This is somebody that it may take them longer to recover from an illness or an injury. These people also, they're more artistic. They tend to be very artistic people, and they tend to be type B personality. They need to be artistic. They need to create. They're very creative. This is an iridology chart that we use. This chart was developed by Dr. Bernard Jensen, who I showed you his picture, and it was revised by by Ellen Jensen, who is his daughter-in-law. And here, what we're looking at, when we look at the eyes, we are looking at specific areas in the iris. But when we look at the iris, we cannot diagnose, and we are not looking at the organs. We are looking at what's called the reaction from the organs. Okay, so when we're looking at the iris and we're finding various markings in the iris of the eye, and we find out where on the chart that those markings are, we can't diagnose anything. We can't diagnose a disease, or we can't tell a person that they have a problem. We're not doctors. We're not doctors. So especially here in the United States, we're not doctors. We cannot diagnose. There are different rules in other countries, but here in the United States, we cannot diagnose. We can ask the person based on what we see in the iris. We can ask the person if they're having an issue in that particular area, but we cannot diagnose. So I've got 3 case studies to share with you. This first case study, you can see this iris. This is what we call a mixed biliary iris constitution. So this has both blue and brown. And also with a mixed biliary, with a person that has mixed biliary eyes, there's usually someone in the family that has blue eyes and someone in the family that has brown eyes. It may be a parent, it may be a grandparent, it may be a great-grandparent. There's usually someone in the family that has blue eyes. In this case, the grandmother had blue eyes and the great-grandfather had brown eyes. So there were people in the family that had both blue and brown eyes. So this belongs to a 62-year-old female. I'll give you her information, talk to you about some of the things that she's done and how she's doing today. She, at the age of 12, is her first memory of having any digestive problems. But she started having digestive problems at the age of 12. She had back pain, a lot of back pain in her 20s, a lot of blood sugar imbalance growing up, especially in her 20s. I think it really started in her 20s, blood sugar imbalance, where she would just not feel right. She would feel kind of sick, and lots of heartburn, gluten sensitivity that she didn't even know that she had until later on in life. Definitely had high blood pressure, but that didn't start until She was pregnant with her daughter, and at that point, she was diagnosed with preeclampsia. So she had a lot of swelling, a lot of problems with blood pressure when she was pregnant. She did have high cholesterol, broke out in hives. So she had lots of hives on her skin when she was in her 20s, which is, of course, when she had most of her stress. A lot of intestinal bloating, irritable bowels. That started all the way back to when she was 12. Kidney stones. She had 2 bouts of kidney stones. Found out that she was lactose intolerant. She does have methylation issues, if you know what that is. So she did come out positive for MTHFR gene errors A1298C and C677T. She has a lot of muscle pain when she's stressed, and of course, lots of stress. She was diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. So that was something that she needed to work on as well. And the therapies I've listed here below, she changed professions. She quit her job, changed professions. She sees a chiropractor, which really helps break that stress cycle and helps her back. She does take herbs. So she takes herbs for her cholesterol. She takes bitter herbs to help detox. She has done a lot of enzyme therapies. She's on a very good exercise program, and that helps reduce stress. She's on a gluten-free and a lactose-free diet. So most of the time she follows that. She's not perfect, but tries to do really well. She is on a methylation program, and that has really helped with her cholesterol. She's on a modified paleo diet, which means that she is on a low fat paleo diet, does not bring in a lot of grains, does not eat a lot of grains, as those grains can cause irritation and inflammation in the bowel. She does take nervine herbs and does a lot of meditation, baths, Epsom salt baths. And here you can float, so a lot of floating. Notice that she has a mixed biliary eye. And if you remember what I said before, mixed biliary has to do with digestion. And it has to do with the stomach, the liver, the colon, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. So lots of problems there, lots of problems with digestive problems, lots of problems with the bowels, and bloating and irritable bowels and lactose intolerant and so on. So when we look at the eyes, like I said, we don't diagnose from the eyes. I mean, I can look at this eye and I know a lot about this person because I've known them for a long time. But when we look at the eyes, we can see these markings. Now, in the center of your body is your digestive system. When we work with iridology, it's set up just like the body. So in the center of the iris is the digestive system. And here inside this ring is the stomach and the colon. And these are called reaction fields because we can't actually see the stomach and the colon, but we can see the reaction from those areas of the body. And what we see here, if you look at this iris, is that this area is darker than any of the other areas. If you look out here, this is called the ciliary zone here, and this is where all the organs are. And in here, this is darker. So when we see that area is darker, that usually can tell us that that person may be having problems with their digestion. They may be having problems with heartburn. They may be having problems breaking down their proteins. Food may just sit in their stomach for a long time. They may be having a lot of problems with their bowels. Lots of intestinal bloating, irritable bowels, just lots of problems with imbalance in their digestive system, their stomach and their bowels. Here we see these rings, and you can see these rings are white, these little rings. So we look at these rings and we count them, and we can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this lady has 4 to 6 rings in her eye, and they are white. Now, these are called nerve rings, stress rings, sensitivity rings. They have to do, also they're called contraction furrows. They have to do with how a person deals with their stress and their anxiety, where that stress can affect their body. So just because somebody has a lot of rings doesn't mean that they have a lot of stress. we have to ask the questions. So just because we see these rings in somebody's eye, we can't diagnose them. So we can't say, oh, you have a lot of stress. But what we can do is we can ask them, do you have a lot of stress? And this person has a lot of stress or had a lot of stress. They've really learned how to deal with that by, seeing the chiropractor, working with their body, exercising, and so on. And so notice where all these rings are. They go throughout the entire iris, which goes through all the body, all the organs, all the glands. And also out here on the outside of the iris, just like your body, is your skin and your circulation. And notice that I said that she had hives. So that means that stress can affect her skin as well. So when she gets very, very stressed, it can affect her digestive system. It can affect her muscles. Notice I said muscle pain here. It can affect her muscles. It can affect her circulation. It can affect her skin. So her main goal is to reduce stress and learn how to work with stress and how to deal with her stressors in her life. The other thing here that we see is this kind of opaque ring here. This ring here at the top is kind of this white ring, and also down here at the bottom. This ring here, when we see this ring, it's genetic. It doesn't mean that the person has the problem, but everything in the eye is genetic. But this has been related to high cholesterol, high LDL, low HDL, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, high sugar, all of those things in the blood. It's been related to all of those things. So when we see that ring, we usually send people for blood tests to find out, check their blood sugar, find out how their blood sugar is, if it's high. We send people, we check their blood pressure, see if it's high, have them check their blood pressure at home, send them for lab work, check their cholesterol, check their LDL, their HDL, and find out if this is a problem that they're having or if it's genetic. If it's a genetic tendency, then they know that they need to be careful with their diet. If they're having problems, then they know that they have to change their diet and go to a lower fat diet, don't eat the sugar, and work with their body. So this 62-year-old female here, she's done a lot of work over many years. Today, she's no longer pre-diabetic, which is wonderful. And her blood pressure is stable at 120/80. So that's really good news. So she's done a lot of work working with herbs, working with her diet, working with relaxation techniques, and and her bowels are pretty good. She really doesn't have a lot of problems with her bowels anymore unless she eats too much dairy. She has to be really careful with dairy. And just dairy, she's lactose intolerant, so dairy is not good for her body. Okay, let me move on to the second case study here. And this case study is about a 20-year-old male. And he had a brachial plexus injury at birth in his right shoulder. He does have blood sugar imbalances. He's had a lot of bronchitis when he's young. Chronic sinus issues, always blowing his nose, always has mucus in his nose, constant sinus problems. Croup, he had a lot of croup as a child, ear infections as a child. He's also a little bit lactose intolerant, so sometimes he'll have irritable bowel problems, and he has had pneumonia several times. Notice he has blue eyes. He's blue eyes. He's blue eye lymphatic. And so all of these things fit. These are very common for blue-eyed people, having the sinus issues, the bronchitis, croup as children, ear infections, pneumonia, and things like that is very common for blue-eyed people. So for him, he changed his profession. He is now in the U.S. Army. And so he's in the U.S. Army. He's a helicopter mechanic in the U.S. Army. He has seen a chiropractor many times to help him with his spine and to relieve pressure on these brachial plexus nerves. He changed his diet. He eats every 2 to 3 hours and that helps with his blood sugar. If he goes too long without eating, then he has the symptoms of low blood sugar, which is, kind of grumpy, needs to eat, and feel better. Had lots of physical therapy from birth, went to Shriners here in the United States, had a lot of physical therapy with Shriners to help him with the shoulder, the brachial plexus injury. He was paralyzed at birth. His whole right arm was paralyzed. And now he has, as an adult, he's got normal he's got normal movement in his right arm. He's learned how to strengthen his shoulder muscles. These muscles tend to be a little bit weaker for him. And so he does more repetitions on his right side with less weight to strengthen those muscles. And he's also a swimmer and does many, many athletics. So in the past, what we would do is we would look at the eye and we would look in the shoulder reaction field, which is here. And we would say that this marking, this is called a funnel, this marking appeared when he was injured at birth. When this brachial plexus injury occurred, that is when this marking showed up in the eye. What we have learned with research, and many, many, many years of research and continual research, is that that is a genetic tendency for him. That's a weak area for him in his body. It was there before he was injured at birth. This weakness here in his body with the nerves, this was already a problem in utero. And so what we see in the eyes, all of these markings in the eyes, this is all genetic. But just because, like I said, just because we see it in the eye does not mean the person is going to have a problem. So let's say that he was not born the way he was born. He did not have a brachial plexus injury at birth. Let's say he was born C-section, cesarean, and there was no damage done to these brachial plexus nerves at birth. And let's say when he was maybe 10 or 11 years old, he joined a soccer team, which a lot of kids do, and he did. And while he was out on the field playing soccer, one of the other players ran into him right into his shoulder. This area for him, his right shoulder, is weakened. He could suffer from that brachial plexus injury right then when he was struck by that soccer player. So it may not have been at birth, but because of the way that he was born, it was a vaginal birth, and the mother had a hard time with the vaginal birth. So the doctor apparently grabbed his head, pulled, and twisted, and that is what caused the injury. So if that hadn't occurred, there may not have been an injury at birth, but he still could have an injury over here when he was older. And still the nerves, the brachial nerves, the brachial plexus nerves that go from the neck down into the hand could have still been weakened. So this is a genetic tendency for him. This is a genetic area for him. It's very interesting. The research going on in iridology is very, very interesting, and it is moving at quite a fast pace. This is the third case study that I want to share with you. And here we see a brown hematogenic iris constitution. This is a brown eye. This is a 70-year-old female. She has anemia, which is very common with brown-eyed people. She's anemic. She suffers from high blood pressure, high blood sugar. She was diagnosed as pre-diabetic. She still suffers from hot flashes. She has what's called iritis, which is irritation of the iris. She has painful joints, and she does have some thyroid issues. So she has changed her diet. She was on an all-fruit diet, and she changed that to paleo. Her body was just not able to break down that diet. It wasn't able to work with all that sugar. So she changed from an all-fruit diet to a paleo diet where she's not eating all that sugar. She's juicing celery first thing in the morning and drinking that, about 4 ounces of celery juice fresh every morning. She takes chromium. She uses colloidal silver in her eyes. And since she started using colloidal silver in her eyes, she has not had any more iritis. She eats every 2 to 3 hours to maintain her blood sugar. She eats organic now. And she's taking some herbs. She takes herbs for her blood sugar to help lower her blood sugar. She takes herbs for her high blood pressure. And she takes herbs for those hot flashes that she doesn't want to have anymore. And her hot flashes have reduced. She still has a little bit, a few here and there, but nothing like what she was having. She juices red fruits and vegetables every day for her iron. She stopped all sugar and uses stevia and monk fruit. So the good news is she is no longer pre-diabetic. She is working with her doctor to stop her blood pressure medicine, and he has already lowered her blood pressure medicine. He's cut it in half for her, and she is continually watching her blood pressure, and her blood pressure has been stable, 120/80, actually even a little bit lower than that, even though she has reduced her blood pressure medicine. So she will go back and see her doctor again and have him lower her blood pressure medicine again, as long as her blood pressure remains stable. At this point, I just want to introduce IPA to you. IPA is the International Iridology Practitioners Association. This is the website, www.iridologyassn.org. And the mission of IPA was founded for the purpose of promoting excellent international iridology standards. And the vision of IPA is that iridology is utilized as an assessment tool in all branches of medicine, both alternative and allopathic, in all countries, and used for every man, woman, and child. So I'm very honored to be a speaker here today. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. If you're interested in learning about IPA, you can check the website. This is a picture here of an instructor meeting that we had in San Diego, and that's me right there at the instructor meeting. So it's a very family-oriented organization. We all know each other. We all work together. We all support each other. And we all love iridology. That is our passion. We are all researching iridology. We all have our own clients that we work with, and we are constantly researching and performing research to bring iridology forward. So thank you very much again for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, you can contact me. There's my telephone number, 530-878-1119, my cell number. You're welcome to call or text me. My email is iridology@netzero.net, and my website is www.joyfullivingservices.com. Thank you very much.